Okay.
Let's take a photo of that and copy it
This
down
is-
sometime.
I have sent you the photo
Thank you, sir. You
on the
should
group.
Thank you, Baya.
Alright. So what you're looking at is a whole bunch of squiggles, right?
Squiggly shoes.
Yes, squiggles. Okay. The reason I'm doing this is not just to terrorize you with Hebrew. Alright, there's very interesting links. Alright, so in your Bible, read the first line.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. Beginning. Alright. Okay. No, in the beginning.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, shall I go on?
First sentence.
God created the heavens and the earth.
The end. In the beginning, God created heavens and the earth. Okay. Well, I suppose before we get into this complex study of Hebrew, let's first break down in the beginning. You're starting a collection of books of what people will call the Torah, right? And the word Torah means instruction. Okay? So when we say Torah, we are generally referring to the first 5 books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Okay? Why do they call it Torah?
There's rules in it.
Okay, there is rules. It is the place where you will see it throughout more so than any other place in your Bible. And God said, tell the people of Israel, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Okay? When you move on to histories and things. Basically what you can boil the prophets and Joshua and so on and down to is, this is what happens when you do it. Blessing, you take the land, and then this is what happens when you don't. You get kicked out the land. That's basically a summary of the Old Testament. God says, do this. I created everything. And this is what happens when Israel did it. And this is what happens when Israel didn't do it. And that will lead us into what people call the New Testament. This is what God is going to do to fix us because we can't seem to stick to it. Okay? And then that becomes a, how do I live that out? Until Revelations becomes a, let's bring it back full circle and let's get back into the garden. It was always meant to be about you and me walking together for eternity. That was always the plan. But we broke the plan. Yes? We didn't listen. We brought sin into the world, and now God has to deal with us whining about sickness, diseases, death, plague, pestilence, famine. But the reality is we created that. He didn't. Okay. In many cases.
Waarom ze die ligse Excuse, hy het 'n keer 'n gaatjie af.
Okay, so who received the book of Genesis?
Moses staan er.
Okay, traditionally that's what we understand. All right, so when did he receive the book?
On the mount.
A long time.
Back when Moses was walking the earth, yes.
Lang gelede.
From what we understand traditionally, it's always been passed down that at Mount Sinai, God goes, hey, listen, this is where you're at. Okay, now how did we get here? How did Moses sit down looking at a nation called Israel and go, how did we get here, Lord? I remember the burning bush, and he can tell you more or less a story up until the time from his viewpoint. But what happened before that to get them to this point? And the book of Genesis, roughly translated, okay, let me say it this way. The book in Hebrew is called Bereshit. Bereshit is the first word in the text. It's translated as in the beginning. Bereshit, in the beginning. Okay? Genesis was a name given to us by 70 rabbis who translated the Septuagint. You know what the Septuagint is? Okay. The Septuagint was a Greek translation of the Torah. All right. And it was done around the time of 250 to 300 BC. They took 70 rabbis in the city of Alexandria in Egypt, and they said, we've got a problem. Okay? Remember, this is just before Christ. Greek Empire has taken over. The most spoken language we have running around the world is Greek. So now you're Hebrew and you believe in the God of the Hebrews, but you can't understand anything because you're Greek speaking. You can read Greek. You can't read Hebrew. So how are you going to understand God's instruction? So they recognized the problem. They got 70 rabbis and they sat there and they developed what we call the Septuagint, the first 5 books written in Greek. Okay, and they gave us this word, Genesis, which basically means the origin. Okay, so this is a book that you will probably break down as, in Hebrew we call it Toldot, which means this is the history of the family. This is the history of something. This is the history of generations. This is the history of. And when we really break it down, the book of Genesis can be broken down with the history of the universe, i.e., the history of the origin of the universe. Okay, opening chapters. Then it goes into the history of Adam. Then it goes into the history of Noah. Then it goes into the history of Noah's sons. Then it carries on to the lineage of Shem. Then it goes to the history of Terah, Abraham's father. Then it goes into stories of Ishmael, Isaac, Esau, Jacob, and that is a very plain way of breaking it up. It is a family history with a side bit of, oh, by the way, this is creation. Now, the book of Genesis or Bereshit will not give you a complete summary of how God created, when he created, and why he created. Right? You have lots of scientists that will go, all right, tell us how God created everything. This is not a biology or a scientific text on how God performed miracle after miracle creating everything. It simply becomes a statement of, I spoke, this happened, that's what's going on. Doesn't give you a list of animals, doesn't give you subspecies, doesn't give you any Latin names. It simply says, these were the animals, these were the first humans, this is what it is. I need you to get you down to the fact of Moses is trying to figure out how we got here. So he says, all right, well, this is what I need you to help Israel understand. I was the God who created heaven and earth and everything in it. Then Adam brought sin into the world, and so we go on. Then there were these other guys, and then there was this flood, right? Then after the flood, they got up, and then they kind of multiplied. And then after they multiplied, they went into different nations. After the nations, then I met with Terah and Abraham. And after Abraham, there was Isaac and Jacob. And then there was all these tribes. And then there was Joseph. And then they were all in Egypt. And for the rest, you kind of know the story. So he is getting to a place where he's giving Moses and Israel a catch-up on the fact of, listen, I'm the God that was there from the beginning, and I'm the God who sits before you now. The Exodus story is really about them leaving Egypt, isn't it? Again, Moses writing down, helping us understand what that reality was. Leviticus, how did the priests that got chosen at the base of Mount Sinai, what offering system comes in place? How do we implement that offering system? Numbers really goes into the wilderness, and Deuteronomy goes into the end of Moses' life where he goes, listen, you're going to cross into the promised land. This is what I need you to focus on. So Genesis is one of these books where, although there are many questions concerning creation, in many cases, he'll simply just go, this is what I did. All right? We can expound on it and we can look at certain things. Like you might come across somebody and says, let's discuss evolution. You're going to look at it from in the beginning point of view, and they're going to look at it from a scientific point of view. How then do you have the discussion? Okay? Now, I can give you some tools to kind of help you that if you want to go into it, all right? But we can do that in maybe a separate session.
Yes, please.
Okay. Right. In the beginning. All right. So we're looking at this story, and God telling Moses that this is the reality. Now, the questions, there are going to be some really weird questions like, why doesn't God start with the Exodus, with Moses? Or why doesn't he start with the Ten Commandments?
Maybe Moses asked.
It's a possibility.
No, we want to state that before time he was there.
I think it's a reality of, remember, before the gods of Egypt, I was. And you've got to answer some other questions. Like other religions don't simply give you, they barely give you an answer, but they don't really understate the problem. You know, if you go into like Hinduism and Buddhism, those things, they were like, okay, this is how you become a better person. But that's determined on how you see your life. What is good is determined by what you think is good. But they never ever tell you of how it got bad and how to fix the general problem that death has entered into the world. They don't try and help you understand evil. They don't try and help you understand the eternal plan of God. They just try and do snippets of their own understanding. They never ever give you the fullness of, in the beginning, I was the one there, and this is what it's going to be. Because you can wrap up Genesis to Revelations and fold it up in a book, and they can touch sides, and we can go, do you see God's plan unfolding? Revelations is to tell you how I'm going to get you back to what I told you I did in the beginning. I'm going to deal with Satan. We find him in Genesis. I'm going to deal with death that entered in Genesis. I'm going to restore relationship, me and mankind, like it was in Genesis. So to understand your Bible, really, you really got to understand Genesis to understand what God is doing and what he wants to do. Isaiah will say it this way: the end is revealed in the beginning. So if we do not understand the beginning, you're probably not really going to understand the end, because we're now, this is what I think God is doing. Okay, and I don't know about you, but if I take a look outside and look at what's going on in the world, if I didn't have the book, I really wouldn't know what he's doing. I'd be asking, why is he taking so long, and why isn't he smack some sense into some people? And that doesn't always work. Okay, so when we start, we have these 7 words. Okay, everybody count them? We have 7 words, right? Isn't it interesting that we have 7 words and we have 7 days of creation? 6 days where he creates, 7th day Shabbat. Now, really weird question. Of all the letters to start the story with, why does he start with the bet? Why doesn't he start with the first letter, Aleph?
That's a good question.
Yeah, lots of weird questions we ask, right? And we're going to go, Rahman, it just says there, in the beginning, God created. Why do you want to ask all these weird questions? Because these are all clues. And remember, we're studying to understand God, and if all things point to Christ, Christ is in the picture. Do you see him? No, not yet, but hopefully we're going to get there. That's one of those 3D puzzles. Still don't see him. All right. If we start to break this up, you're going to see the gospel probably based in the first word alone. Okay? And this is kind of, we can get lost in this and we can play with this. Probably for the next 3 or 4 hours. But just tell me when it becomes too much, okay? I don't want to lose you in the Hebrew or the links without giving you the foundation. All right. So, what we're going to see here is something interesting. Start off with the bat. Bereshit, pronounced in Hebrew, in the beginning, one word. You see that in the first line of your Bible, yes? Mm-hmm. In the beginning. God, Elohim, created. Okay? Elohim, bara, created. The heavens and the earth. All words accounted for, yes? Except for this one. Seven words. Only 6 are translated into the English. Why? Yes. Now this is so confusing that the rabbis don't know the answer. These are the guys who understand the text, they write it down, they speak Hebrew fluently. And they look and they go, this Menir Kiya has no purpose. Grammatically, doesn't help build sentence structure. It simply doesn't fit as what they've understood biblical Hebrew to be. They just go, it's there. Why is it there? God said it. We don't understand it. We kept it there. We have no clue. It's an interesting little word. Right? Now the question is, what is that word? Now, on your little your little bookmark, tell me what that letter is. I'll give you the clue. It's the first letter and the last letter.
Beginning and the end.
This is an Aleph.
Yes.
Okay? The Aleph means what?
First.
The first. Okay? What's the last letter?
Wow.
Tav means covenant or cross. As in the cross. Now that's really weird. When you put this together, what it actually means, because you see it there as well, right? And is literally just this letter here. It's a ve. Ve, et, means and the earth. As in, it's pointing directly. When I talk about this pen, I would use the term et, Aleph Tav. But that doesn't fit with the heavens. Grammatically, again, it should not be there. Now, let's flip this around a little bit. In Revelations, Yeshua says, I am the Alpha and
Omega.
Okay, now what does that mean?
Beginning and end.
The first letter in Greek is Alpha, the last letter in Greek is Omega. Omega. If he said it in Hebrew, he would say, I am the Aleph Tav.
But Tav doesn't mean end.
He says, what is he saying?
I am the beginning to the cross.
I am, remember? Okay, the only way we're going to understand it is I want you to go to John quickly. Go to John chapter 1.
Normal John.
Yes, sir. The Gospel of John.
So what apostle is the I am the Alpha and the Omega, is that correct?
And the beginning and the end.
Translation.
The beginning and the end of what is what you should ask. Right. In the beginning, now remember, John, like his rabbi, used a remez. A remez, when he says in the beginning, he actually wants you to go back to the place where that's written. And he's saying, remember in the beginning. Now, what was in the beginning according to John?
The word already existed.
The Word was there. What else?
Word was with Elohim.
And the Word?
Was Elohim.
Oh, so the Word was with God and the Word was God. Which Word?
It's
The Aleph Tav. Who is the Aleph Tav? Yeshua. Why? Because he is the beginning and the end. He was the Word. All things were created by him and through him. I.e., when everything was created, God spoke. Did God use any of the letters of the alphabet when he pronounced what it was? It's not a trick question. When he said, come forth sand, sand was there. Come forth light, light was there. Come forth moon, moon was there. Did he use words?
Yes.
He is the beginning and the end. God's very spoken word is Christ. Where was he? Even written in the text from the very first line. When John says he was there, he was already showing you. Remember, the same John who writes Revelations, I am the Alpha and Omega. Okay, so Christ in the beginning in the first sentence. Are we happy? Versus hamsters. Now I want to show you Christ in the first word. Okay, so Bereshit. Let's first break down the letters. Bet on your bookmark means
Tent, house, family, inside.
okay, house or family. So when God starts his story of the origin of all things, he says, this is about my family. He doesn't say this is the start of me. You don't need to understand how that works, because we won't. This is the story of how you got your Moses. This is the story of how Israel was. This is the story how every human being comes in and that you were made in my image for me to be in relationship with me. Rosh is the head. Aleph is the first. Shin means to destroy. Yod is a hand. And this is a cross or a covenant. Now, Shin can also mean the one with the teeth. What do we have? Cross or? So one that looks like a wobble here.
Here, Banya for teeth or crown.
Destroy.
Destroy, separate.
Crown.
Separate or press. Okay, so let's have a look. Alright, so within Bereshit there are certain words. Bar in Aramaic means the son. Who is the first of the family? The son, Yeshua. Who is the first son in the beginning? Was Yeshua, right? Here, the first son will press or be destroyed through the hand to establish the cross of the covenant. Is it making sense? Right. Now we have other words within it. The son will be, Bosh is how you spell it out, is the head. Be, Rosh, if I take Be, Rosh, and Shin, it means it's on a cypress tree. What will be on a cypress tree? Say it, as in Shin, Yud, Tav, thorns. Hang on a second. So what do we say? Shir is a gift. Break it down. The first son will have thorns. I'm on a tree because it's a gift. From who? Good. The son, or the first son,
So those two words, the two end words, is
Bar.
is bar.
Bar, and Rosh.
Is three.
Okay? The first son, or the son, will have on his head thorns.
Where do you get thorns?
S-Y-T.
Is thorns.
Shin.
Those three is
Yes,
thorns.
thorns.
Why do you have to say it?
Because the shin is also can be an S sound. Just like the bet can also be a B. That's just Hebrew.
Okay.
So it has different sounds. So the pronunciation would be said, not shade.
Let's see.
Okay?
It's not saying.
No.
That
Not
was
say.
me in the beginning as well, and everybody stood up like,
And that will be the gift. Let me just make sure I got that one here. Sorry? Yeah, it's she, not sheer. She. Apologies. Take off that.
Sorry,
She.
whiskey.
Here, these two. Shin and a yud. She is the gift.
Can you see why I can't speak Hebrew yet?
Listen, this is not just basic Hebrew. If you walked into a class and then they would have said Berashit, the end and you would have left. This is unpacking biblical Hebrew.
Oh, yes.
This is not normal biblical.
This is not your basic Hebrew.
No. This is you're finding Christ in the hidden code, which is Hebrew. Okay. So the thorns on a tree, bet, resh, shin. Berosh is a cypress tree. And that becomes the gift. Okay? So the story of the crucifixion.
All over and over again.
So you can mix and match those words to tell you
In
the
the
story.
beginning.
It's like many of them are straight in line. The only one that is Berosh is the cypress tree, which is the one that will take away the eye. That's it.
It's a spoiler alert in the first sentence.
The end is revealed in the beginning. Okay? It's the same as when we look at God's name, the Yud Hey Vav He. A hand reveals, a nail revealed. The very name of God is salvation in a sense. So, are we okay? You got 2 more. You got a few more seconds of this. Nothing too complicated after this. Bereshit bara. Remember, bara is a combination of 2 words, bar and aleph. Who created the sun? Elohim is where I want to stop. Elohim is what?
God on high.
No, that's Al Elyon.
Oh, thanks.
Close.
Can I go back to the beginning when we did the names?
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I thought it was that one because
It's
of
there.
the Prince of Egypt.
I don't know, I have Elohim here. Lots of them.
What's that one?
Well, El means God.
Mm.
El Shaddai, Adonai, Hashem. En dan wat goed dat ik niet kan bespreken.
Oh, you got El Olam.
Ja, why did I have that one?
I don't know. Write it in.
Hope you didn't just go.
No, maybe I forgot to rewrite it. Wacht, hier's nog namen. I missed that one. Ek gaan hom net hierby skryf. Please
Alright.
do that one.
Elohim. Okay, what we need to remember about Hebrew is that you have masculine.
I have Elohim.
Okay, what does it say?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I put it yeah, but I don't doesn't say what it means.
When we talk about Elohim, what's the biggest thing that you need to understand is that when we translate El, that's the word for God. El, right? And that's simply put, if we had to break it up, means the first or the strong shepherd.
Oh.
So the first shepherd was God. Okay? I'm the good shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. It's literally written in the name. Now, the problem we have, when we say the problem or the confusion comes in, is when we go, all right, I understand Hebrew a little bit, and we go, this is a yad. That's one hand. 2 hands are yadayim. Yadayim. 3 hands is yadim. You want me to write it out? We have
I'm gonna
one.
forget it anyway. So if I'm not writing it, I'm gonna forget it.
Yad. Yad, die, in. Yadim. There's a difference in the three. Okay? Yadayim tells you that there's two. It's like me saying both of you. Okay? And when I say only you, I'm talking about this is one. When I say all of you, I'm implying three or more. Now in Hebrew, that works in the way I say it. Elohim. Which one does that sound like to you? Does it sound like El? Elohim? Elohim.
It comes back to the...
Three or more.
In the beginning, God's created the heaven and the earth. That sounds very funny, doesn't it?
Well, the Son, Holy Spirit.
If we understand that God has a plurality, as in a triune, He is one God in three parts. Father, Son, Holy Spirit?
It's like Yeshua.
Yes.
God is one.
Even though He's
More than one.
plural. In the very beginning, God defines Himself as more than one. He didn't start Him, I am El Shaddai who created it. He didn't start, I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh who created it. He says, in the beginning, we created, is basically what you translate. But it doesn't get translated as plural here because they understand that God is singular. And yet there's something about Him that says, hang on, there's more than one here. What does John tell you? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was Elohim.
It's funny that it also states it 3 times in that sentence.
He's pointing you back to this. He's trying to show you that in the very beginning, in the first sentence, you see Christ. He was there. He was in the midst of creation. He wants to redeem His creation. He is God. He's not just some guy. He's not just someone from a physical lineage. He is God in flesh who came to redeem the fallen creation. He's Elohim. Now that's exactly what almost got Yeshua stoned. Because he said, oh, you refer to yourself as God. And then he uses a loophole to get himself out of it, very, very sneakily. I'll teach you that one day. But for now, let's just focus on the beginning of Genesis. Okay. So, in the beginning, created Elohim, the first and the last, of the heavens and the earth. This is a statement. It is not a question mark and it's not an explanation. Hi, we were there. This is what we did. Moses, are you keeping up?
I think Moses is happy.
You're starting to put yourself in his shoes. And when we start to peel.
Because he got so much download.
So, yeah, and
It totally went in him, through him, all around him. He had to blow. There was so much that he had got from Abba that
yeah.
he was glowing.
Yes. And by the way, in the beginning, the head of the family will first press their hand into the cross. Are we having a good day, Moses? Is that making sense to you? This is something you're going to stew on for a while. Okay?
He listened. I hope he did.
Yeah, we're recording, it's fine. And
Do you think you should keep the secret, like Now he knows it, like, oh, I can't tell this to anybody.
I don't know if you really understood. Just like in many cases today, you will read this, and Hebrew-speaking people will read this, and they will read it in the Hebrew, and they will glance over. They go, Rabbi, why is that Aleph Tav there? Well, we don't know, but carry on reading. Bereshit bara Elohim, and they just kind of glance over him. Just like we glanced over Yeshua. And there he is. He's there from the very beginning. Can anybody tell me he's not divine? John's purpose of his writing was to tell you that this is the reality. Okay? We can move on, yes? Don't expect you to recite this. Expect you to remember a simple truth. God was there in the beginning. And we can move on from there. Yofi? All right. So let's get into the verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was unformed and void. Okay, these are two Hebrew terms, tovu, vebohu, which tovu, vebohu. I know. There's a lot of really weird rhyming words in Hebrew. Those are one of them. It just basically means everything was jamakar. Nothing was working. Yeah.
Nothing was working.
God pitched up and he said there was darkness on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the surface of the water. Oh yeah, we have the Spirit of God hovering over the water. We have the Word here, and we have God. Triune. Okay, while we're there, what's the difference between triune and Trinity?
You have told us that. I can't remember.
Maar write it down, please. I'm going to ask you that.
In between hierso is dit alweer eens weer geskryf.
What is the difference?
Kan jy onthou?
Ek was hier vir daai lesie.
Ja, nou alles
Ek was hier vir daai lesie.
at the end.
I would have remembered.
Trinity sort of implies that there are three separate gods, as in three separate beings. Triune talks about one God in three separate parts. Okay, without getting too complicated, I want you to see triune is probably the better word to use. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or God, the Word, and the Spirit. Okay? All part of that same reality. So the Holy Spirit was there from the beginning. Then God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day. And the darkness he called night. So there was evening and there was morning one day. So day one, what does he create?
Light and darkness.
Right, light and darkness, or day and night, he establishes. He says that it is
Good.
good. Okay? And we go, that's amazing. Just spoken, that's the end of it. When did the day start?
Where the light started.
Mm-mm. So
When
there
the
was.
day started, when it was
Where the
evening.
darkness ended.
So there was evening and there was morning one day. You're pointing that pen at me, yes, ma'am?
It doesn't say it's good.
Does
Does your translation say good?
Yeah.
I just say good because it's always,
It's
That's
always good.
yes.
God saw the light and it was good.
Verse 4.
Verse 4.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, myne
Oh,
sê dit ook nie.
Mine is, yeah, no, mine is,
Yeah.
The light was good.
Light
It
was good.
separated.
Yeah.
darkness was bad.
Bad.
One day it says it's not good.
Yeah.
Well, not he says it's not good, it just doesn't say it's good.
I'm glad your mind is already trying to pick up on the next one. Let's see. God said, let there be a dome in the middle of the water. Let it divide the water from the water. God made the dome and it divided the water under the dome and from the water above the dome. That is how it was. And God called the dome sky. So there was evening and there was morning a second day. And God said it was.
Good.
Do you read that?
No. And that's not good.
So you might want to put there date 2 question mark. Why not good?
Why not good?
I was thinking they were good.
Everything was good. Apparently not. Right? So here he separates the sky. Notice he says, I'm going to separate the waters from the waters.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
The
Does it mean
waters
the
from the
earth
water.
is flat and the wall is separating the waters from the water?
No.
That's awesome.
But
Wat was die vraag?
why does he say he separates the waters from the waters?
Because there's waters above and waters below.
No, water's in the atmosphere, okay? And then water's underneath. Remember with Noah's flood, it wasn't just the rain from the sky that flooded. It said waters came up from underneath. That should tell you something if you understand day 2. He said, I want you to stay there and I want you to stay there. With Noah, he said, that's it, you can do whatever you like. Go back to the way it was. Noah's flood was more about uncreation.
Oh, wow.
The fish in creation, maybe.
Well, the fish were there, but the water, his boundaries of where the water was allowed to go, he removed them.
Sure.
Remember, he said he was sad he created man.
Yes.
He says, maybe I shouldn't have. He was creating space for man to live on. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have just left the waters where they were.
Sure.
Noah's flood. It's not just about rain.
Dat is ons visies.
Huh?
As die water gebly het waar hulle was, is ons allemaal visies.
Say, well, you wouldn't have existed. Verse 9. God said, let the water under the sky be gathered together into one place and let dry land appear. And that's how it was. God called the dry land earth, and gathering together of the water he called seas. And God saw that it was
Good.
Day 3. God said, let the earth put forth grass, seed-producing plants and fruit trees, each yielding its own kind of seed-bearing fruit on earth. And that is how it was. The earth brought forth grass, plants, each yielding its own kind of seed, and trees, each producing its own kind of seed-bearing fruit. And God saw that it was good, and so it was evening, and it was morning the 3rd day. Okay, so there is something very important in that statement. Each tree produced after its. Okay, this is what you might hear we reference when we say it's the law of like kind. When God said, I want watermelons, he designed the seed in such a way that it will only produce watermelons. I don't plant a watermelon seed and expect pumpkins. Why is that? Exactly. So everything about the plant, how high it grows, what fruit it bears, everything is encoded in the seed. All right? This needs to be in your back of your mind when we hear about the tree of life and the tree of knowledge and good and evil. What fruit it produces is encoded in the seed. I eat of the seed, I then replicate the fruit.
Okay.
You with me? Okay, so that plant that gets ingested in me, I replicate. If I eat of the wrong tree, death is the problem. All right. So that was day 3. God said, let their lights be in the dome of the sky to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs, for seasons. In your notes, that word for season, what does your translation say? All say seasons. Appointed times. Better translation. Okay, that word season is the Hebrew word moedim. Moedim. Now, why is that important? Go to Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23, verse 1. What does it say?
Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, and God said, wat? Het jy in die begin gesê?
23.
Yeah, 23.
This one.
What does it say?
And God said,
God said what?
speak to the children of Israel and say to them, the appointed times of Adonai, which you are to proclaim, and set apart gatherings, my appointed times are these.
Oh. So the appointed times, were they from the time of Leviticus or were they time there from creation?
Creation.
Oh, he already set up the calendar on how those appointed times would be kept from the very beginning. That tells you something. He knew something was going to happen. He knew redemption was going to be the plan. He knew you were going to need a Passover lamb. He knew you were going to need a Messiah. You knew you were going to need an atonement, and you knew you were going to need tabernacles. All of those things that he tells us to celebrate were there in the back of his mind. He's going, you're going to need this. This isn't seasons as in, yay, it's summer.
No.
But it sounds like that though.
It does. Because again, unfortunately, the Hebrew is not always carried across.
Can I
Yeah.
ask something or say something? Nou, hoe sê ek nou weer wat in my kop is? Ai,
Sê soos dit is.
ja, maar dit raak scramble.
Okay.
Is that God saw the end from the beginning? Is that, ja, daar kom dit nou uit. Nee? Is, that's what it says here to me.
Yeah, he knew what was going to happen. He was not surprised he was sitting there with Moses.
He knew Moses and he was just waiting for the first.
Here we are. Yeah, just like I said we would, and don't worry, there's going to come a point when you're going to want a king, and you're going to get a king, and then he's going to drive you crazy, and then you're going to go, why do we get a king? He's like, so many times we see him prophesy about what you're going to want and what you're going to get, and then you're going to be grumpy about it.
Doesn't it make you wonder, Abba knows everything from the beginning of time. He's putting himself through so much torment that we're giving him for not turning his way or not seeing what he wants us to see.
Yeah.
And still yet he created us. Still yet he's trying to give us time to repent and turn to him. And I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
Ek het in my sak.
Ek doek in my sak.
Ek het nie myself.
Ja, as
It don't be like so. It just makes my heart so sore to think that where are we for him to think of us?
Now you're starting to understand the point now, right? Not only did he know that we were probably going to mess everything up, but he knew that he was going to have to come to die to fix it, just to prove that he is God.
And in the beginning of them being there, Yeshua knew before the Creator, he. It's like now thinking of the prayer in the garden.
It was thousands of years in the making. Can you imagine? You know, people ask. One of the questions people go, well, if God knew everything, then why? With all the sickness, with all the death, with all the disease, with all the wars, why would He then do it and not say anything about it? Why then would He allow this to happen? What type of God do you serve?
He's not allowing it. It's our own will that created everything in this mess that it is.
Yeah, but He has power. He can stop it, and He refuses to do it. And what we make, without being God, we do the same. You have children knowing that they can turn out bad. You hope they don't, but you still have kids, don't you? You get married.
You know, because my mom told me, I'm so glad you turned out okay.
Well, the jury's still out. But yes, we're not as crazy as what other people can be. But the simple reality is, it's like you go into marriage knowing that it can end in divorce. It takes one person to walk away from a marriage. It doesn't take two, it takes one. And yet you still take the chance. Where did we get that from, you think? Where God goes, I know this is going, but I'm going to give you the benefit of that. And when you mess up, which you're gonna, I'm going to fix it. But there's a process that He wants you, and we're just going to discuss this, sort of unpack that now in the next, coming up when He creates man. Is, remember, He is showing not only us who is God, but also the angels who is God. Now, they might be in the throne room and they can see him as he is. But the reality of the prophecy and the planning of bringing all of those things to the point of culmination, that's something they are watching unfold as they sit there. It's a different lesson. Okay? Or it's the same lesson unfolding in a different way. You with me? So he sees these things. So we're looking here as he creates the sun, the moon, and the stars. Listen to what he says. Let them be for signs, seasons, moedim, days and years. Okay? Signs in the sky. Days from evening to evening. Years according to a lunar cycle. And let them be for lights in the dome of the sky to give light to the earth. And that's how it was. God made the two great lights, the larger light to rule by day and the smaller light to rule by night, and the stars. God put them in the dome of the sky to give light to the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. So it was evening, and it was morning the fourth day.
Sorry, I'm going to backtrack quickly.
Go for it.
So, since Tanya mentioned the not good thing, he also didn't mention it with the plants.
Well, it was within that day period. He does still say something's good.
Okay.
But yes.
Okay.
Right? So day two, for some unknown reason, he just doesn't finish it. Now some people can say, okay, well look, the sky was yet incomplete here, right? There wasn't any sun and there wasn't any moon, so he was still busy fixing everything before he said, okay, now I'm happy. Other people might look at it from a different point of view. It's just an interesting question. I don't want you to solve it today. Okay? If the sun was not yet invented, how was there light in day one?
I had this discussion with Andre and my uncle, and they laughed at me.
He was the light.
Wat? Wanneer?
Ons vind nou dat te praat het. Ons was... Sien, het was so onbelangrijk vir jy. Dis by Boeta se gat.
Doesn't remember. Yeah, remember it says in Revelations they will not need the sun or the moon because he will be the light. So the very light that was created is a reflection of him. This is who I am. I'm bringing light into darkness. So it's God himself. And that, the sun, becomes sort of a reflection of that light. Again, let's think about this for a second. If we study the vast expanse of the universe and how that the earth, if it is on half a degree of its axis, or if it is any closer, one planet either way, to the sun or not, nothing would exist.
It would be dead.
Nothing would be able to grow. Gravitational pull wouldn't. We'd be either too hot or we'd be freezing to death. There would be no way life could happen. And he says it as if he's going to pull a box of coffee off the shelf at Checkers. Oh, and by the way, I just sorted out the sun and the moon and stars. And yeah. There's I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a guy by the name of Louis Giglio. He does a teaching called Indescribable.
Yeah.
Right?
Planet comprehension.
Yes, and he basically goes in using the Hubble telescope here in South Africa, actually putting out to show you comparatively when they go out to the furthest expanse of the universe, from what you can see, how the giant stars, the big suns, are like the equivalent of a flea standing next to a table. Our sun is that big versus this being a sun out there.
Sure.
And that's not even the biggest. How he has all of that lined up working perfectly. And you look at that and he goes, oh, I just pulled them out. The psalmist says that the heavens declare your glory. You know, that he holds the entire universe in his hand and he calls the expanse of heaven out by name. Hey, can you try and get people just to name the planets in your solar system? They might get it wrong. You're like, I studied that once. And yeah, he has everything exactly where it needs to be, just so that there can be life here and you have a pretty sky to look at. That those little dots are planets reflecting bigger suns, and some of those have moons, and how it's all rotating absolutely perfectly. Just so that you can look at it from Abraham and go, you see the stars in the sky, that's how many kids you're going to have. And what detail does God go through to be able just to say, all right, well, they're going to be for you signs, and they're going to be, I'll help you tell your calendar, and they're going to tell you when I want you to have a party with me, okay? It boggles the mind. But this is just a statement. This is how it is. Okay? Day 4. God said, let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth in an open dome in the sky. God created great sea creatures and every living thing that creeps, so that the waters swarmed with all kinds of them. And there was every kind of winged bird, and God saw that it was good. Then God blessed them, saying, be fruitful, multiply, fill the waters of the seas, let the birds multiply of the earth. So there was evening and there was morning, a 5th day. So, law of like kind. God said, let the earth bring forth each kind of living creature, each kind of livestock, crawling animal, and wild beast. And that is how it was. God made each kind of wild beast, each kind of livestock, each kind of animal that crawls along the ground, and God saw that it was good. Then God said, let us make man. What translation what do you guys have there?
Human beings.
Human beings. Okay? The word there is Adam. All right? Man in Hebrew is Adam. It's mankind. So the fact that it's man and his name is Adam is not really correct. Okay? You have 2 different words. For mankind, you can say Adam, or you can say man, which you say is Ish.
Ish.
Yeah, as in a man is a Ish, a woman is a Isha. Okay, so there's an interesting play here. So it goes mankind. Let us make man in our image. Your translation, same.
In his own image.
Does it have a plural there? Our?
His singular.
Only in your translation. Everybody else says our?
Mine says his image.
Oh.
So God created man in his
Oh,
image.
so I'm reading on
Wait a
our
minute.
In our image.
our image.
What verse are you on? Verse 25.
26.
No, 26, sorry.
Our image and our likeness.
Okay. What's our? His own. Okay. So let us make man in our. In the Hebrew, talks about our image. Now, what does that mean?
Doesn't that bring us back to actually
Father, Son, and
how
Spirit.
that hour, the hour that's ours?
Sorry, I'm
Mm.
with you now. Yes, our image.
Elohim is a plurality about it, right? Now, if he was singular and he says, let us make man in my image, that would be case closed. But now that you understand that there seems to be this triune effect, making us, if we study ourselves, we would have a better understanding of how he works, because you're made in his image, correct? Okay? Plural.
Their image.
Okay? In their image. Good. In the likeness of ourselves. Same thing? And let them rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the animals, and over all the earth, and over every crawling creature that crawls on the earth. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. All right. So, what does it mean to be created in God's image?
You will have qualities of God.
Okay, so that's one aspect. You have godly characteristics. Okay, what else does it mean?
His spirit.
Okay, so you can be made up of in three parts. Okay, Thessalonians tells us we're made up of.
Ag jy het dit net nou gesê.
I did.
I was here for that.
Spirit,
Spirit.
Right.
Body,
Nee.
spirit, soul.
Body,
body, and
Spirit,
mind.
soul.
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 Ah.
Spirit, soul, and body. You're made up in three parts. Okay, we can unpack that at a different time. You're made up in three parts, just like God is three in one. Okay, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or Spirit, Word, and God, in sense. Okay, what else? What about free will?
Yes, you have that.
We have that. Where did we get that, and why do we have it?
Ons kom van God.
Right, because God can choose and He can choose not to. He has free will, so you have free will. Does a lion decide that he's going to wake up one day and be a toaster? No.
Problem.
He's just going to be like, I'm a lion, this is what I do, and I'm going to live out this life. I decide he doesn't want to become a business analyst or anything like that. He doesn't have a choice. He's a lion. Okay? You all of a sudden have this unique ability that's unique to all creation. There's something different about mankind. That now you can look at things in a creative way. You can choose to follow. You can choose not to follow. You can choose to sit down. You can choose to stand up. You have a lot more options in front of you because you were created in the image of God. Other things were spoken into creation. You were breathed into life, and we'll get into that. Okay? In some people say is that if you want to look at by design again, your DNA gives you a clue of how you were made up in God's image. I.e., you were, before the fall, meant to be immortal.
Yeah.
You were not made to die, you were actually made to live forever. In another way, you can say, as God is in Echad, you were made to be Echad with God. You were supposed to be in unity with Him. Or your body itself, spirit, soul, and body, is supposed to operate in unity with Him. And another, don't worry about that one. We can kick that about in many different ways. The biggest thing is that I need you to see that you have the characteristics of God, that you are His from the very beginning. That wasn't an accident that you are called His son and daughter. It was the problem when the fall happened that created that separation between that reality and what we have. And now through Christ we come back to that. Okay. All right. Verse 28. God blessed them. God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, and every living creature that crawls on the earth. Then God said, here, throughout the whole earth, I am giving you as food every seed-bearing plant, every tree with seed-bearing fruit. So He gave to man, what are they supposed to eat?
Fruits and seeds.
Right.
Oh, shameful.
All the nice green things. Okay, we were supposed to get all the nutrients from the beginning of the plants. Only after Noah's time where we were told we are allowed to eat animals. Okay, and to every wild animal, bird, and the air and the creature crawling on the earth in which there is a living soul, I am giving as food every kind of green plant. And this is how it was.
The lions ate celery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
can you believe a lion was a vegetarian?
Hulle het 'n interessante studie daaroor gedoen. Soos 'n panda beer, dieselfde tipe kakebeenstruktuur as 'n leeu en jy het 'n eat and boot. So it's like,
Yeah, what went wrong?
yeah,
We know.
yeah.
God saw everything that He made, and indeed it was very good. So there was evening and there was morning, a sixth day. Let's carry on just to the last one. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, along with everything in them. On the seventh day, God was finished with His work which He had made. So He rested on the seventh day from all of His work which He had made. God blessed the seventh day and separated it as holy, Because on that day, God rested from all of his work which he had created, so that it itself could produce. Right. Seventh day.
It's funny that you said that last part that said it could produce because I didn't have it in my translation.
Okay. Yours as well. Not there. Might be a CJB. Like I said, we use many different versions.
Can you read the Hebrew?
I'd have to look it up. Okay. Can I take this off?
Yes.
Do we need a...
5-second breather.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ja.
Die maak nou gewoon
Ah, all right.
That road, there our house.
Your swimming pool, you mean?
Yeah, the new swimming pool.
That's amazing. Okay, so we have this interesting pattern, right?
Right.
And we started off with,
Oh, that's new.
this is going to be very different. Yeah, we got it. Thank you. Your fancy Hebrew lesson, right? So we saw in day one, God created day and night. Sky and sea, land and vegetation, sun, moon and stars, sea creatures and birds, land animals, and man on the sixth day, and then Shabbat, right? So with that, we also saw that there was an interesting little pattern. We have Bereshit, or in the beginning. Created God, Bara, Elohim, and so we go on. So we have the 7 words of Genesis 1. Yeah. Okay. From there, we can probably play a little bit more. Isaiah 11. Verse 1 and 2, what does it teach you? Isaiah.
I don't know.
It's an open book there.
Isaiah. Which numbers did you say?
Isaiah 11.
My eye is now really independent. I 11.
Jesse.
Hoe soek jy nie vandag nie, baby? Jy is gewoonlik eerst op haar knoppie.
11.
Isaiah 11. The stump of Jesse, and then what?
Oh, we did this.
Yes, we
I was here
did.
for this lesson. I think there's one of our second lesson.
You were. Okay, so we've got Isaiah 11,
Yes.
and that teaches you out of the stump of Jesse, that's David's father, they will come.
A branch.
And Netzer, and what comes after that?
The bill.
No? The what?
The
Just a random Moses and I mistake. Seven spirits. 7 spirits of God, right? Or the 7 attributes of God. You see it there?
I'm still the Gentiles that seek him.
No, go back up. Go to the beginning.
From the beginning. Okay, they shall. Oh, that's right in the beginning.
Right in the beginning. Okay, so what we're going to do is you've got 7 spirits that are named, right? And this is an interesting thing, okay, because it kind of gives you a picture. The reason I drew a menorah very badly, this is what a menorah actually looks like, is that you see that each branch is linked to the next one.
Yes.
So when you read about the spirits, what do you see? Read them to me.
The spirit
Of?
the Lord.
the Lord.
Okay, the
shall
spirit
rest
of the
upon
Lord.
him.
Central beam. The spirit of the Lord. Okay, what's the next one?
Spirit of wisdom and understanding.
Wisdom leads to understanding. Next one.
Spirit of counsel and might.
Counsel leads to might.
And the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord.
Knowledge brings fear. All hang off the central beam. In Hebrew we call the shamash, or the servant. The servant of God. That's Yeshua. Right? He says, I'm the light of the world. This is the image that he talks about. I'm the menorah. Okay? So when you link up the 7 spirits, we can actually see that the spirit of Adonai is number 4. Spirit of the Lord. What's number 1? The spirit of wisdom.
Wisdom.
So then we can put wisdom here. And then we can follow just a way of playing this. You can go wisdom and understanding, or we can go wisdom leads to understanding all the way back down to number 7. Next one.
Council.
Counsel and which leads to
Power.
counsel and might or power. Power or might. Okay. Next one.
Knowledge.
Knowledge. Which will then bring you to
Fear of the Lord.
fear of God. Okay. Now look at what we're doing. Again, this is now extracurricular. You're trying to follow a pattern. Now the pattern is, if there are 7 days of creation and there's 7 words in the first sentence of creation, what does in the beginning God created day and night? He created the sky and the sea. Elohim brought land and vegetation. The Aleph Tav, the sun, the moon, and the stars. The heavens, sea creatures, birds, and land animals and man. On the earth, Sabbath. Okay, now we can kind of go, do we see anything there? Add to the next thing. Through wisdom, God created day and night in the beginning. In counsel, the sky and the sea, there was creation. You guys following? Okay, we're just following a pattern, all right? And then Elohim, there will be knowledge, land and vegetation. Aleph Tav, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, is Adonai, the sun and moon and the stars, or the Moedim, the appointed times. It's all about Christ, right? Fear of God in heaven, the birds and the sea creatures. Power, he brought forth man and land animals. Understanding, he created the earth and gave it its Sabbath. My wife's smiling at me, and that means that, yeah.
She doesn't.
No, she's smiling at me thinking that this might be a little bit over the top for you.
Oh, she's definitely right.
You did earlier.
Oh no, she's definitely right.
Just like you say, actually.
This kind of branches off into many different parallels of 7. Okay? And this is something that I would invite you at one point or another to maybe chase down a little bit. Okay? I don't want to lose you in the midst of it. But something as simple as Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Pentecost, Yom Teruah, Festival of Trumpets, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. You could place in here as well.
It comes to the 7 abominable sin, was it?
Andre?
Is it prophets?
Andre?
Watch your novel.
Yeah.
Alsjeblieft.
As well.
7 deadly sins.
Wow,
I don't know.
that's more of a Catholic reality. The 7 deadly sins.
Oh, we don't do that.
Yeah. So you've got, something like the 7 churches in Revelations. So you can go from Pergamum, Ephesus, all the way across. You can do 7 species. So when God said you're going to go into the land, you're going to see pomegranates, figs, barley, wheat, he carries on. He names 7 different fruits. Is there a correlation that you can actually break down and you can actually start to see a pattern? What do all of those 7s or lists of 7 actually, are they going to give us understanding or tell us a little bit more about the pattern thereof? Okay? And in some cases you might just shake your head and go, I don't see anything, that's fine. And in other cases you might go, hang on a second, say now this one for example. If I just had to add Pentecost in here or Shavuot, because that's the 4th feast. So Pentecost, it was about Christ, it was about God, and it was an appointed time. It kind of tells you the story, there it is. Right, that was the Holy Spirit was poured. No, the
And
fourth one.
the Passover.
Yeah, Passover.
So that's like being visual in your life.
A night vigil, it was established you in the beginning. This was what was going to happen. Okay, and so we go. You can go and you can actually. There are guys that literally you'll sit and you do courses on the stuff, and then you will chase every single pattern of 7 that they can possibly think of to try and give you some understanding of maybe these are different illustrations or a different way of studying something out. I'm not too concerned about this right now. I just wanted to introduce it to you. At one point or another, if we start to draw out a menorah, this is kind of an intro to another way of studying. Yeah? Okay. All right. Tell me about Shabbat. What did you see in Genesis 2? What is it about Shabbat?
It was a sanctified day.
Was it that? Yes, it was. Okay. When does Shabbat really come into our understanding? It's applicable where?
On the 7th day.
7th day, and it was established for the nation of Israel when?
In the beginning.
On the very beginning.
Oh no, for the nation of Israel
Oh, at Mount Sinai.
at Mount Sinai, and it became the sign of a covenant according to Exodus 31. Shabbat is about creation. Became a sign of a covenant.
Here.
In Exodus 31, and it is the 4th commandment. Go to Exodus 31 and tell me what you read there about the sign of the covenant.
Exodus 41.
30.
Oh, 31. It stops at 40.
What do we do?
There's more books he's holding out on us. What's your translation? Exodus 31, you should see a heading or something that talks about sign or Shabbat.
Instructions for the Shabbat.
Okay?
Okay, but
Then the Lord said to Moses, say to the
oh,
Israelites,
sorry, André, gooi.
you must observe my Sabbaths.
Oh. Do you guys read that? What verse is it? What verse do you have there?
Verse 12.
12?
Yeah.
Okay, check it 12. You shall observe my Sabbaths. Is it plural in everybody's Bible?
No, it's plural.
Right. What?
There's 13.
And you say
12.
Sabbath.
Tell the people of Israel, be careful to keep my Sabbath day.
Alright, verse 12.
I say that. No, it's not.
The Sabbath is a sign of covenant between me and you from generation to generation. Sabbath.
Sabbath singular.
Uno.
Mine is plural.
Yours is
Confusion comes in and then they believe, but Shabbat is not supposed to be kept.
well. This gets a bit confusing because it talks about Sabbaths. Now you know of your weekly Shabbat, right? On the seventh day you keep Sabbath. Now what is he talking about Sabbaths?
All of them
It's
that's
not
coming.
always on the Sabbath day, so there will be Sabbath days.
When the holy convocations
Yes.
that we're supposed to have with the feast, according to Leviticus 23, you'll say it's a time of rest, a time to convocate, right? So when he says in Exodus 31, you are to keep my Shabbatot, my Sabbaths, then we understand that, okay, Sabbath is not only for, in Genesis we understand that Sabbath is for all creation, yes? We see in Exodus 31 that all of the feasts and their appointed times is linking back to all creation. Yeah? Because God created everybody and we're supposed to sit at God's feet. What did God do on the seventh day? He rested. And what was he looking at, do you think?
Everything that he made.
Everything in his made. Okay, so that'll give you a clue. If God is focusing on his creation, what is his creation supposed to be doing?
Focusing on him.
Focusing on him. This is why Yeshua sat in a Torah study and he got together in synagogue. We study on a Saturday because that's what the rabbi did. And it was a sign that you belong to him. Okay? We see that fourth commandment, Exodus 20, what does it say there about the Sabbath?
So it's 20.
Yes, man.
It says remember the Sabbath.
Remember the Sabbath day and do what?
And keep it holy.
Begin er alweer van
6
voor
days
af.
you shall labor and do all work, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath of the Lord. What? But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God.
Mhm.
In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. Rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it.
And made it holy, set apart for himself. You belong to him as part of your creation. Okay, so nothing new from the point of creation, right? It just reaffirms the same truth. Isaiah 56. Mm-hmm. What hamster you got going on there?
No, it's the word Gentiles. I never said Gentiles.
Gentiles.
Yeah, something
Het
like
lijkt
that.
het soos jou congregation of wat daai ding wat jy net nou gesê het. Hulle gaan wat? Hulle gaan verkeer.
That's a
Hulle gaan confused daar.
Yes. The Chanel translation could have been very interesting. Right. Isaiah 56 teaches you what?
I've written here Matthew 20.
Salvation for others.
Huh?
Salvation for others.
Isaiah 56.
God right ruling
Yes.
and do righteousness.
Okay.
Lees dit dan.
Keep reading.
Yeah.
Keep reading.
Blessed is the man
Blessed is the man who
who
does this, the man who holds it fast, who keeps the Sabbath without defiling it,
Guarding his hand.
and
From
keeps
doing
his
evil.
hand from doing any evil.
Keep going.
Let the foreigner who has been bound himself to the Lord say, the Lord will surely exclude me from his people, and let not any eunuch complain, I am only a dry tree. For this is what the Lord says. To the eunuch, eunuch who keeps my Sabbath, who chooses what pleases me and hold fast to my covenant. To them I will give within my temple and its walls a memorial and a name better than the sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that will not be cut off, and foreigners will bind themselves to the Lord, to serve him, to love the name of the Lord, and to worship him.
And to keep. Continue reading.
Wat jy nou? Ja,
And all.
and all who keep the Sabbath without discriminating it, and hold fast to my covenant, these I will bring to my holy mountain and give them joy in the house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. The sovereign Lord declares, he who gathers and the exiles of Israel, I will gather still others to them, besides those already gathered.
Okay, so Sabbath day for Gentiles, if we focus just on that, what does he say? The foreigner should not say. Actually, there's a pulled amps now. Finished,
And he has separated me from his people.
Right, because if those who keep fast to hold my Sabbath dear, now this is a foreigner he's talking about, will be brought up to my holy mountain, and my offerings will be accepted, because my house shall be called a house of
For all nations?
a house of prayer for all nations. Did your rabbi say those words?
Yes.
Remember when he walked into the temple and he started flipping tables?
Yeah.
And he said, my house is supposed to be a house of prayer for all nations, except you have made it a den of
Thieves.
thieves. Right, so he says these people that have come here to pray, these people that have come here to focus on the Moedim, remember it was the time building up to Passover. It was probably that Shabbat. So here he says this is for all creation. Last one, Isaiah 58.
Verse 13. Keep the Sabbath day holy. Don't pursue your own interests on that day, but enjoy the Sabbath and speak of it with delight as the Lord's holy day. Honor the Sabbath in everything you do on that day. And don't follow your own desires or talk idly. Then the Lord will be your delight. I will give you a great honor and satisfy you with the inheritance I promised to your ancestor Jacob. I, the Lord, have spoken.
Okay, so the Sabbath is supposed to be a
His day.
It's a delight. Okay, so I don't know. There's some people that really like to keep busy. I met a lady once who came into the congregation. When I told her she had to sit still and do nothing, she found it like a chore, like I was punishing her. She's like, no, I need to be busy. I need to do this. I need to do this. I said, no, you don't. You need to learn to relax. You need to sit at God's feet. You need to learn to fellowship. You need to let go.
It's like the Mary Martha situation.
It is at time.
And
You
we
need to let go.
get so focused on keeping ourselves busy that we forget God in the mix. This is the time that you're supposed to set apart for Him and you, from sunset to sunset. It's you and God time. If your significant other, your spouse, looked at you and said, I want to whisk you away once a week, we are just going to go, we're going to take long walks on the beach, we're going to have a picnic, we're going to talk.
That would be nice.
Yeah, do it on a Sunday.
What have you done?
Nou, sê dit met op 'n Shabbat gebeur nie. But would you say that would be nice?
Oh.
Nee,
That would be nice.
that would be nice.
Do it on a Sunday.
So you get to the place where you have 6 days to do whatever you want to do. God says, remember that I am your creator. Put aside everything else and just come back to the basic. I created everything. I put everything as it is. What makes you think I can't take care of you? Because that's the underlying thing, isn't it? You want to do stuff, You want to build your own kingdom. You want to go and enjoy things. You want to go and do this. And he goes, listen, when you were living for you, where did that get you? Not in a good space. Why? Because you kind of lost focus on the simple reality that you were created for a relationship. You were made in my image so that you and I could have that relationship. So 6 days, do whatever you like. Okay, as long as you're not sinning. But do anything you like.
Just don't sin.
Let's just make that clear. Put that addendum in there. And then, on this day, get together. Leviticus 23, it calls it a holy convocation. Okay, it says it's a time of gathering. It's a time where we can come together. It's a time where we can focus on God. It's a time when we're supposed to. And again, if we just had to bring that back to how Messiah did it. He sat in a synagogue, which is basically just the only house big enough to bring everybody together, and you're going to focus on the most important thing of your community. We are all very different people with all very different paths, with all very different hobbies and interests and all those things, but the thing that holds us together is God. So take one day a week and enjoy that. Having a community that you can do that with is rare. Very. You know, people that left us, they immigrated into Australia, the closest they get to this, they have to drive 2.5 hours to another family.
Sure.
Because
Just one family.
just another family.
Sure.
Otherwise it's online. He says he just misses inviting someone over for dinner, or seeing them the next day at service, and just being able to sit and talk about what they learned. They miss it. So we don't have it. And I was telling Tanya, there was a guy on another group that found other Messianics that are happy to sit in their home by themselves on Sabbath. This is an unbiblical truth.
Ja, dit is mos nie reg nie.
Yeah, it's I think the danger of what we've created with live stream church.
Ja.
What was necessary with COVID has now become, I'll sit in the comfort of my own home, I don't have to go out, I listen to the Germany, I'll push pause when I feel like it, or whatever the case may be, and then I just leave and I'm fine. I don't have to deal with people. But the body of Christ should not get to the place where we start to separate ourselves. In Hebrews, if you want to go look it up, he says there still remains a Sabbath day for God's people. Because people go, well, we entered into the Lord's rest, so therefore he is my Sabbath, and he is the Lord of the Sabbath, and I don't have to worry about that. In any one of those realities, did he ever say, do that until Christ comes? No, in fact, if we kept it like Christ, we would then keep to the reality of keeping Shabbat and working towards the fact that when everything is complete, then we will really enter into God's rest. But as a holy convocation, as a time of learning, as a time of gathering, as a time of family, it's important. Life is busy, life is crazy. Not often are you going to be able to sit around like-minded people and go, you know what, we've had a tough week. How do you deal with people who want to talk about evolution? How do you deal with people like this? How do you deal with people like that? We won't negotiate with them.
Lay hands on them.
How do we understand the text? And we kind of go through that process where we get an opportunity to grow and to learn, and then make God the focus of what we do today. Okay? Any questions, any thoughts? Are we sure?
Yes.
All right.